Sunday morning cold, eyes on the score, touchdown dance ball, craving for more. Friends are calling, trades are on fire. Rookies falling, championship desire. Fantasy football fever, chasing the dream. Top of the leaderboard, we're the winning team.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Healers program, a show that is Dynasty Fantasy Football. I'm your host, Dustin Brown, and with me is my co-host, Colten Palmer.
How's it going, guys? I never know when you're gonna finish.
That's what she said.
I have my breath held ready to just say, "How's it going?" But man, pumped to be back for another week. After having a rough week last week, I'm glad to be back. So ready to talk some fantasy football and all the craziness that has happened in the couple weeks now that I've had to kind of be gone here. You're excited to listen to all of your combine stories and go over all this free agency and off-season drama that's going on. I'm here for it and I love it. And it's nice and refreshing.
So first, before we get into, I'll touch a little bit on the combine stuff. That experience was fantastic. I enjoyed every second of it. But before we get into that and the free agency frenzy that is this week, you can find us at FF Healers and at FF Captain 22 on Twitter X. And don't forget to follow us on YouTube. You can find us at FF Healers for fantasy football shorts, podcast videos, and other fantasy league relevant videos. But Colten, the combine was amazing. I drove from Central Illinois to Indianapolis, which is about a 3-hour drive on the Friday. Piece of cake. Got there in time to grab a lunch right behind the hotel there. And as I'm eating lunch, to my right, a guy ends up sitting down and I get to chatting with him. Next thing I know, I find out that he's an NFL players agent. He buys me a beer and then he buys me a shot of tequila. And we just keep talking for a bit. And, I would have bought him a beverage also, but like he drank it his very slow. He still had a half a beer when he walked away. And I said, "Hey, if I catch you later, I'll definitely have to buy you one." But he's like, "Oh, no problem, whatever." So that's how the trip started. I ended up walking around the stadium of Lucas Stadium, which is a fantastic stadium if you've never been there. There's so many hotels and food places to go. The combine itself is a free event for people to go into. You just had to have the NFL Players app in order to get in. So as I'm going around, news had broke about Cam Ward not throwing at the combine. And we heard the day before that Shadur wasn't going to either. So you saw Cam Ward and Shadur, the top two quarterbacks, not going to throw at the combine. And so I had to try a YouTube short video and see how that worked out. So I threw that up, and you can find that at FF Healers on YouTube. I'm sitting there watching the combine on the Friday, and somebody sat next to me, got to talking to him, ends up being a scouting agent intern. So I got to talk about, like, how do you get into that? And we got to talking about an hour or so. He ended up telling me about where all the places that the NFL players actually go to as far as like the bars in the area and whatnot. And so lo and behold, later that night, I ended up going to that bar, and there he is. He's sitting next to his boss. I met him, and there's a whole bunch of people that are mingling and whatnot. I swear I saw Maurice Jones-Drew that was sitting there, but he was surrounded by a few different people. So I didn't want to bother him. But if it wasn't Maurice Jones-Drew, he certainly had a double that was sitting there. So it was just really cool. It was really lively. And then the next day was on the Saturday, where it was the quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs. And you're just dialed in the entire time from start, which was like at 10 o'clock in the morning, all the way to about 8:30 at night. And it was just really amazing, Colton. I just can't really say how much more about the combine outside of later that night. Ended up going to the Yard House there at the Colts Stadium. sat at the bar, ate, and two seats down from me, there was a seat in between us. An NFL coaching agent was sitting next to me. So he ended up talking to me for a bit. A group of 5 guys came up to the bar. I got to talking to them, found out that they were the equipment managers for the Colts, and they were helping set up all of the combine events that were there. And I just said, hey guys, you guys did an excellent job. Everything went so smooth. You went from one event to the other. It was very seamless. And one of the guys I got to talking to said he's been doing it for about 5 years or so. I had to ask the question, this is the last year currently that they're under contract with Indianapolis. Do you think they're going to continue the contract with the Colts, or are they going to move it to Texas or to California? And he just made it sound like, they'd be dumb to move it at this point, because in Indianapolis, they've got it down to a T. It's central in the United States, and they have it down. They have it down. And, hopefully we can make it back there again next year, Colten.
Yeah, man, I'm so jealous that you got to go. Unfortunately, it didn't work out with me just because of work. Once we moved across the United States and started up new jobs, they weren't super keen on me taking time off right away. So super jealous. It sounds like you had an awesome time, man. And unfortunately, I haven't been to the Colts stadium. I'm like the only Colts fan that I know. So every time that I'm like, hey, let's go to a football game, it's usually like, oh, well, we're going to Minnesota. So we go to Minnesota, Chicago I've been to. So never actually made it to the Colts stadium, unfortunately. But next year, if it's still there in Indianapolis, I'm definitely writing myself in that we're both going to it again, because it just sounded like such a blast. And just what a way to make awesome connections, and just to hear all the different perspectives, and all the agents and everything. Definitely sounds like you had an awesome time, man, and I'm jealous.
Well, make sure you bring your running shoes, because they had something called the Combine Experience, where you could jump the vertical, you could jump the broad jump. They would have had a 40 outside that you could have ran, but it was really windy, and then it was really cold the next day. So I didn't have that opportunity that you could check your wingspan. And so I had to do that on the Friday, where there was a lot less people, might I add, on the Friday. On the Saturday, get there early. On quarterback, wide receiver, running back, you got to get there early. I was there about 45 minutes early, got in pretty much right when the doors opened, and it was a great event. Actually, also on that Saturday, I was a couple seats above where Jalen Lane, wide receiver from Virginia, his family was up to the right. So when he ran the 40, his folks were yelling and hooting and hollering, and they were having a great time. And then he ran his second 40, and that's when I ended up trying to take a video of that, and that's on X at FF Healers. And if you want to see my vertical or my broad jump, that's also on X. But it was just really cool to see Jalen Lane's family, pulling it in for him. And then there was another runner from Virginia, I think that was a running back, and they were rooting for him. And then we saw that Tesla's family, they were just, a couple rows to the other side. And those were the two main families that I saw while I was there.
Yeah, I saw your 40-inch vertical. Is that what it was? Pretty damn near it.
Yeah, easily.
Athleticism.
Yeah, don't forget the quarter inch afterwards. It was 40 inches and a quarter.
40 and a quarter.
But yeah, it was a good time. There was some news that did break, though, while we were at the Combine on that Wednesday, that Deebo Samuel, he was traded from the 49ers to the Commanders, and you could just hear the whole stadium just talking about it. And then eventually it went up on the big board so everyone could see that the trade went through.
Yeah, man. That trade broke through, and I believe I was actually in the middle of being called in at a procedure. And I was trying to look at my phone while doing a procedure that was happening. And I'm like, what? To the Commanders?
Got a little excited on that procedure.
Yeah, and the doctor goes, what? And so it was kind of an announcement for both of us. And I was just, just in the middle of it, thought it was funny. Yeah, it was definitely an interesting move. A lot of interesting trades kind of happened in this last
I liked
week.
it. I liked the landing spot for Deebo.
I like the landing spot for Deebo. I just don't know the Commanders as to I know they're trying to get more weapons in there. But we've really seen a decline in Deebo Samuel this last year. And I know they're really trying to work on that. But they already had an older wide receiver there in Terry McLaurin. You're bringing in Debo now. I mean, we got to get some youth. Maybe they're going to, try to attack the draft and get a younger one that can be developed behind these guys or something. But I mean, it's a great move for Debo, I think. If I think you can get another year or two out of him, hopefully, maybe he kind of starts perking back up. There were some things that came out this last year that he was injured and dealing with some stuff. So maybe he can get healthy and start producing there in Washington. Just Washington, I don't know why they did it per se, just because they already had that older productive back in McLaurin.
They're trying to surround Daniels with talented wide receivers. You got Terry, you got Debo. Debo, when he's healthy, plays really well. You said it perfectly. It was said to have, not one, I think he had multiple injuries last year that he was probably playing through and just wasn't the same. There wasn't any running back of consequence that was running in the backfield to open up the passing lane. There was no other real wide receivers that were competing for targets outside of him and Kittle. So I just think that the 49ers just had a really tough year just as a whole. And I think it's a good franchise move for both teams. They're trying to build a culture with Washington, and now they bring in a guy that's from a winning franchise in Debo Samuel. I think it's a hit.
Yeah, it's just it's definitely worth something on that team. Some other news that we can just talk about now out of the Washington Commanders is Zach Ertz getting re-signed, coming back for another year, which just we need him. We need him to get re-signed there and take his half year, so our good boy Ben Sinnott can just step into the Trey McBride role and take over that half year mark. That's what we need. That's what it had to be done.
I just feel like it opens the door for you to go and buy Ben Sinnott with Zach Ertz being he only signed a 1-year contract. Although it was for $6.25 million, so it wasn't a small contract by any means for an older tight end. But he built a connection there with Daniels. Again, they're trying to surround him with talented players that know how to play the field, and I think it's only going to help that franchise grow.
Yeah, definitely a buying point right now for Ben Sinnott if you are a believer in him. We don't know what he can do in the NFL yet. I mean, we saw that one catch in the playoff game that he took for the punt, the fake punt. Saw him make an awesome catch there, but other than that, we didn't get to see him on the field. So if you're still a believer in him, this is an absolute opportunity to go and just toss something at someone. Especially right after this Zach Ertz news, if people are going to be down and, hopefully they're not thinking, the Trey McBride situation. So now's a good chance to buy if you're in on them.
Okay. There's only about 3 other tight end news, so why don't we just knock those out? I think the first one real quick is Juwan Johnson resigns with the Saints. I think that was an easy signing for the Saints because they're expecting Taysom Hill not to play. So that would leave Juwan Johnson and then also Foster Moreau as the main tight ends for the Saints. And I've seen so many mocks looking for the Saints to actually go out and draft as early as their first-round pick for a guy even like Tyler Warren. I don't think that happens at all, by the way, especially with the resigning of Juwan Johnson. But it definitely opens the door for the Saints to have a little more flexibility. They have a lot of areas of need, but I do not think that tight end is one of them.
No, I mean, Juwan Johnson, he's a good tight end. I mean, like in terms of blocking, and he can also receive. He is a true tight end that can kind of do it all for them. We have to remember tight end is not just a fantasy position. It's not always someone that can go and catch a bunch of, not everyone is Brock Bowers. They have to block, and they're part of the run scheme because of the blocking and everything. And he's good at doing both for them. So he's a good dual threat and a good tight end. He's also a very athletic guy, so he is good for fantasy as well. So they went out and signed him and locked him in. His whole thing is he's been injured a lot. He's been injured up and down, in and out. So we haven't seen that fantasy productivity. If he could just stay healthy, he would be a solid tight end to have as a flex play. Well, not flex play, but plug and play.
Good flex, and there's been games where you could flex them, especially when there wasn't any wide receivers available.
Yeah, I meant plug and play though. Someone that you may not play every week, but if you need them for a week, absolutely, you can put them in there.
Yeah, I prefer not to flex the tight ends.
Yeah, me neither.
Mike Gesicki, speaking of athletic tight ends, Mike Gesicki re-signs with the Bengals for a 3-year extension. I think this is a massive win for the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Mike Gesicki get it done last year. There was a couple of games where he had over 10 receptions. Particularly with T. Higgins coming back there. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But he's had an injury-prone career. And so Mike Gesicki really stepped up when he was kind of out those games, and they need that nice security blanket. And I mean, Joe Burrow, he is a very, very, very good quarterback, and he's passing the ball off to kind of everyone. And, it's easy to look good when you have Joe Burrow passing you the ball, but Mike Gesicki is athletic enough and kind of gets the job done as a nice security blanket there. And another tight end that you can probably get super cheap that you could plug and play if need be.
Speaking of other plug-and-play tight ends, Evan Ingram is released by the Jaguars and has now signed with the Broncos. Everyone, again, was mocking the Broncos as another place that tight ends could fit in the first round of the NFL draft. Again, I do not feel that this is something that's going to happen, especially now that they've signed Evan Ingram.
Yeah, if you want to talk about athletic tight ends, Evan Ingram is, there towards the top. He's been profiled as that athletic tight end since he was a rookie, 8-9 seasons ago now. I mean, he's been in the league a while, 30 years old. I love the landing spot. I really do. This was a fantastic spot for Evan Ingram to go. Sean Payton loves athletic tight ends, and he likes to feature his tight ends a lot. And I could see Evan Ingram really having a role here because, out in that wide receiver room, we didn't really see it shake up so far this offseason. You got Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, Vele. You got just a handful of some guys there, so I could really see him making a dent right in this offense pretty much right away. And we saw Bo Nix is a very capable quarterback. I think this is going to be I don't know if it's even necessarily sneaky anymore. I think they're going to be a good offense. Not even a sneaky good offense. They're just going to be good.
It's not sneaky anymore because,
Yeah.
they're projected to get a running back. They're probably projected to get another probably day 1, day 2 wide receiver on their team. And next thing you know, Bo Nix has more weapons and they're in the red zone more often.
Yeah, I really think with this move, it was kind of rumored that they might be looking at a tight end in that first round. And after this move, I really think you should look for the Denver Broncos to be picking up a running back that first round. So I think they're going to have their hands in that cookie jar pretty early.
A lot of teams may. Now, Colton, you did tease us a little bit about T. Higgins. Why don't you bring us up to date on T?
So yeah, T. Higgins, franchise tagged again. They said it is with the intention that they are going to sign him to a long-term deal. I don't know where you're at with this, Dustin, but I think it was the best landing spot for him, honestly.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
I
don't think they sign him.
You don't think they sign him long-term?
No.
It came out rumored today that they were close to closing in with both T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. I saw that on one of my news feeds today, is that they're close with both of them. I mean, the salary cap went up by like 26 million or something. So it was a lot more than what some of the teams were expecting. Now, Bengals have been one of those franchises been known to not like to dish out the money a whole lot.
Pennies.
Right. So where they land on that is the bigger question. I mean, if they truly want to not waste Joe Burrow's years in Cincinnati, I think they'll go in and sign him. They were starting to turn things up there at the end of the year. I mean, they went from getting absolutely demolished. I mean, in terms of they kept losing one-score games back to back to back to back to back. To towards the end of the year, they were really starting to cook, and they had a hopeful chance at the playoffs. A whole lot of stuff had to unfold in order for them to make it. It just didn't work out. So if they can really kind of turn that around, they could be a scary good offense. And going back to T. Higgins, because we just went off on the Bengals offense, this was the best landing spot for him, though. I mean, he's got the rapport with Joe Burrow. We've seen him absolutely cook. He needs that Jamar Chase across from him to really allow him to play even better. I mean, it just opens him up more, because if you try to tee off on either one of them, the other one's going off. So both of them feed off of each other very well. And it's just wonderful for T. Higgins and this Bengals offense to keep him there.
There was a free agent wide receiver that I thought would have been a great fit for the Bengals, and that would have been Hopkins. I thought Hopkins would have been an awesome guy to fill in there also, especially if, you know, either one of those two end up getting injured. He'd be a great wide receiver 3 for the team, but instead Hopkins signs a 1-year deal with the Ravens for about $6 million. With Hopkins, I think he's just looking for a ring, and he thinks that he has this best opportunity by joining the Ravens, and maybe he's not wanting to catch as many balls as he had in the past.
Yeah, we've really seen a decline in DeAndre Hopkins. He went to the Chiefs last year.
Yep.
Last year, trying to get that ring, he's really searching for it. And I mean, when you're that old, I mean NFL terms, when you're that old, it's hard to switch teams and all of a sudden become productive. I mean, we saw at the end of Julio's career him just jump around from team to team to team, and he just couldn't ever get that productivity back and be great. For the Ravens, we saw their offense finally come together under Todd Monken. Rashad Bateman kind of appeared once again and resurfaced his career. So we see it unfold, and I just don't know where I see this place for DeAndre Hopkins there.
Oh, I don't at all. I really don't think he's going to have about as much playing time as Deontay Johnson.
So 0, and then off the team, then back on the team, and
I think he's a free agent now, isn't he?
Deontay?
I believe he's a free agent. And he's not picked up anywhere. So you will not be hearing from us about Deontay Johnson anymore on this podcast unless there's news that breaks. Darius Slayton re-signs with the Giants. What are they doing? I saw a meme that had Saquon Barkley, and it had the exact same amount of money as what they pretty much paid Darius Slayton to come back. And it was the old image of, no, I don't want that. And then they had the old, pointing the finger to Darius Slayton is, yes, that's my guy.
100%. What are the Giants doing? I mean,
I love it for Neighbors.
Yeah, I mean, I know they're trying. I mean, Slayton has had a role in that offense here and there. And I know he's had a role, but what are they doing shelling that money out to him that they could? And I know they're trying. They're going to probably bring in a rookie quarterback. It is. I mean, it's most likely happening. I don't know if they're just trying to keep some guys on the team that kind of know the offense and know the way it works to help bring that rookie in. But the best way to even assist a rookie is to have good wide receivers. I don't know, man. I don't know. If the guy that's running the New York Giants, though, can do that job, how about sign me up? I'll do it. I'll do it for half of his cost, and I'll do about as good of a job.
I'm glad I could catch you off guard there with Slayton. On Twitter X at FF Healers, I put a tweet out a couple days ago, and it was about what would be a good landing spot there for the Seahawks. And I had 2 players that I wrote down, and within a few hours of me tweeting, it's when one of those 2 ended up signing. MVS ends up signing with the Seahawks on a 1-year deal, $5.5 million. Colten, I've got my receipts. Go check them out. I said that he and Keenan Allen would be fantastic fits for this scheme. And they also had some news break here shortly ago about another player signing with the Seahawks. Do you want to break that news?
Heck yes, I do. Cooper Kupp going to the Seattle Seahawks. My goodness.
I think it makes sense.
I think it makes sense. I do. I'll get into it later because I don't actually. I'm going to get into it now.
Speak your mind, Colton.
What are the New England Patriots doing? What are they doing? They've just watched all of these wide receivers just fly by their face, and they're like, you know what? Drake May doesn't need any. I mean, maybe they are reaching out, and these wide receivers are just saying, no, I don't want to go there. But my goodness, offer Cooper Kupp an insane amount of money to go there to help your young quarterback, and I just don't understand. great landing spot. It makes me much more excited for Cooper Kupp in Seattle than it does in New England. I think the hope is still there. It's also a little bit interesting to me, just in terms. I mean, Cooper Kupp is good in the midfield, but I mean, JSN is also thriving there in the early to midfield, and they're both kind of high target guys. Neither one of them. I mean, you bring in MBS to kind of take that ceiling away. He's a big
That's
deep
exactly
threat.
that's all he is. Stone hands himself. Just let
Right.
him run a
Let
full
him
post.
run and get those wind sprints in. So they have
Yep.
someone in there now, but I feel like JSN and Cooper Kupp, not a same or similar play style, but they both operate in kind of the same area.
Like
So
the
it was just
slot.
kind of yeah, it was just kind of an interesting signing for me, for the fact that they brought in Cooper Kupp when they have JSN that runs that role. But I mean, it makes me excited for Cooper Kupp, and I think him and JSN will kind of work together. And so I think we could see some fantasy relevant. Some interesting things though about Cooper Kupp is he's only had 2 1,000-yard seasons. Dustin, did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, isn't that surprising? It's just
It
kind of one of
is.
those.
I know he's had a couple injuries his last couple of years, so it's been tough.
Yeah, it's been rough, but I mean, if you are a dynasty manager holding on to Cooper Kupp, I think if you can sell him by someone that's excited for him going to Seattle, depending on what they're offering up. Like I honestly don't even know what I would offer up for Cooper Kupp at this point.
Early second.
Early second, and
I think it
don't know
gets
if
it
I
done
would.
in this class. People are excited this time of year in these rookie drafts, and people are holding on to the draft picks tight.
Is that what you would give up for Cooper Kupp as an early second?
I think that if somebody was in a rebuilding team, unlike myself, I think that an early second would get it done.
Oh, I
Like
think an early.
201, 202.
Yeah.
I don't think if it's 203, you might have to throw another guy in there. But I think 201, 202, I think that's pretty much what you'd have to pay to get Cooper Kupp, and I don't know if you'd have to pay much more.
It's just I don't know. The thing about it is too. I mean, everything was going okay. Like his first 9 games, he looked like he was going to be a wide receiver one again. You and I were talking in that early season, like, man, this is Cooper Kupp redemption season. And then he gets hurt, doesn't come back for a while, comes back and just doesn't do a whole lot. And then all of a sudden in your fantasy playoffs, does nothing. 0 points, 4 points, 4 points. Diddly. Like it is like he wasn't even part of their offense anymore. And as soon as their season finished, it was Cooper Kupp is going to be off our team, like instantly. So I don't know what happened behind the scenes and what's going on there at the Rams
I
facility.
think it's health. I
But
think
there
it's
is,
the tightrope surgery. I think really done him in.
yeah, I mean there's something that happened behind the scenes where they just weren't happy, and then they go in to sign this next guy we'll probably talk about for pretty much the same contract as Cooper Kupp. So I mean, there's obviously things that they weren't happy with Cooper Kupp and his production, or just Cooper Kupp in general. So definitely some things to think about if you're thinking about buying Cooper Kupp because they know him best.
We'll tease that Ram signing here in just a second, but beforehand, I wanted to at least bring home a point about Keenan Allen. If he doesn't go to the Seahawks, I had thought from the start that the Patriots were the place for Keenan Allen to help grow May as a quarterback. I think that would be, you get a wide receiver with his head on his shoulders, a great route runner. I just feel like Keenan Allen at one of those two places, I think that'd be fantastic. But let's stop speculating about his free agency. We've got so many more guys to talk about. Who was recently signed with the Rams, and why are you excited?
I don't. I didn't. I don't think I. I don't think I said I was excited. I think
Exciting landing spot for him.
I've been off. Okay, Devontae Adams. That's obviously who signed with the Rams. If you're listening to us, you're tuned in. You know things. So Devontae Adams to the Rams on like a $26 million deal or something, 2 year, 26 mil. I mean, so
Hey,
it's
the
not.
man.
Yeah, I mean they paid the man. I've been off on Devontae Adams because he's one of those players that his cliff can come just up on you in a second. There's no signs, no warnings, and his cliff can drop out, and he is absolutely done. So I've been off on him for a couple of years now. He keeps proving me wrong. He's doing quite a bit, and he's going to his 33-year-old season now, 32-year-old
I
season,
believe it is 32.
33.
I think 32.
So, I mean, going to the Rams, I mean, he's going into a great situation though with Matt Stafford coming back. There was rumors that they were going to let him go or trade him away. So Matt Stafford's still there. He does have Puka Nacua there to take some heat off of him. I mean, he's no longer going to be the only guy in town and have to take the beatings that he was having to take in Green Bay and the Raiders and New York. So he's got some heat off of him now. So I could see it working out quite well, and especially with Sean McVay being the great offensive mind, he can cook some things up for him. I wouldn't call it excitement, but it's definitely a good situation, especially if you're a Devontae Adams owner.
Still had plenty of yak when he was with the Jets, and he was certainly peppered with Rodgers. It always seems like he's always peppered with Rodgers, so the target share is going to come down drastically. But I think the real winner is outside of the Rams organization is Matthew Stafford. Having another weapon that he can trust in Adams and Puka, they're winning.
Yeah, like I said, something's weird was weird with that Rams headquarters, because there's like Cooper Kupp's out. Well, now Stafford wants out, and we're going to be trading him. And then all of a sudden, it's like, hey, we got Stafford back. Oh, because here's Devontae Adams, Stafford. So somewhere people were unhappy, and it was definitely an odd situation and some drama going on there at the Rams headquarters.
Only 2 years ago when Sean McVay thought that he was going to retire and get away from the Rams for some time, because I think it was just becoming a lot. There was so much on his shoulders with being that next big head coach, and there was just a huge shadow looming over him. And I think now he's finally coming out of that shadow. There's other guys that are starting to come up, and I think it took the heat off of them. And so I think they're just trying to cool off and really collect themselves and see if they can make one more run with Matthew Stafford and the Rams.
Man, and I mean, they could have. I mean, we saw them handle the Philadelphia Eagles, in the playoffs. They had a chance to win it there towards the end of that playoff game, and then we saw the Eagles absolutely manhandle the Chiefs. So I mean, they were up there with the big dogs. The Rams were. So
the Vikings almost tied with them also in the playoffs before they called an incomplete pass on a clear fumble for a touchdown. But I think nor here nor there.
It's a little salty, huh?
Always going to be. And so, I think in Stafford he actually fumbled against the Eagles, and I said, whoa, wait, I don't know if that might have been an incomplete pass. Let's roll the tape.
Let's run it back.
Yeah, let's keep moving forward. Otherwise, I'm going to get stuck in a tangent. The Seahawks have released Tyler Lockett, and they have also sent a trade to the Steelers. DK Metcalf has been moved to the Steelers for a 2025 second-round pick, and he signs a 5-year, $150 million contract. The Seahawks now have 10 picks in the draft, 5 in the top 100.
They are just going on a fire sale, getting rid of everyone. I mean, it only made sense to me get rid of Tyler Lockett. He has absolutely declined in his productivity. He's getting older. They were paying him a bunch of money to just kind of be there, especially now that with the emergence of JSN. They finally were able to see what they had in that kid, and they're like, yeah, we don't need Tyler Lockett. That one only makes sense to me. That one was obvious. DK Metcalf, I mean, yeah, he's had his anger issues on and off the field, but I mean, he's a very good wide receiver, and there's obviously someone willing to pay him. Maybe the Seahawks weren't bringing in. You forgot to mention that too.
It's on here. Don't worry.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll get to it.
Keep it moving.
But yeah, I thought it was funny with the whole DK Metcalf sign. Did you hear about how he wanted to go somewhere warm and with a stable quarterback?
Yes, I did actually.
Stable quarterback and somewhere warm. So they sent him to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are currently, their quarterback is Mason Rudolph.
Mason Rudolph, yeah, bringing him back. Mason Rudolph was supposed to be the next guy up behind Big Ben, and here he is, reeling his way back to the Steelers. Mason Rudolph actually played really well with the Titans last year in a couple games, so I think, I think it just gives the Steelers a little bit more flexibility when they are on the clock, and they can decide whether they want to push the chips in and move forward for one of these few quarterbacks in this class, or whether they just roll the dice on Mason for a year and then draft their quarterback in next year's class, a much better quarterback class.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, I understand getting DK Metcalf. I think it's a good situation for him to get into. I mean, for him, I not fantasy wise, for him. I mean, he's getting absolutely paid, and he's gonna step in there. There's only 1 year left on Pickens' contract. He's had his anger issues. The Steelers just love those guys.
They're going to move on from him, don't you?
I absolutely think that is a good possibility that they move on from Pickens with this move here. And they still have,
it could be as early as the NFL draft.
Yeah, I mean, and they still have a guy that they don't know what they have in him, and Roman Wilson sitting there. So definitely going to see some shaking up there in that wide receiver room, I believe, and we'll see what they do at the quarterback position. I mean, I really don't know what to say about DK Metcalf yet until we figure out who the quarterback is going to be there in Pittsburgh. It could be good and it could be bad with the rumors that are kind of floating around. So it's just kind of like a standstill right now on DK Metcalf's outlook.
So stay tuned to the Fantasy Football Healers program in order to know what our takes are about DK Metcalf's future in the NFL with the Steelers and on your fantasy teams. With the Kansas City Chiefs, Marquise Brown resigns with the Chiefs for a 1-year, $11 million deal. This happened just barely after news broke that Xavier Worthy was arrested for assault, but later on he was released. I don't know if you heard the full thing in regards to Xavier Worthy. Apparently there was a girl that was end up staying at his house that they weren't getting along with, and she wasn't really listening to anything that he had to say. And my understanding is that she ended up calling and was trying to extort Xavier Worthy, and that's what the attorney had brought out. And there should not be any disciplinary action from the NFL with this incident.
It sounds like charges were dropped too, and that he would not be charged with anything. So yeah, I thought it was an interesting situation as well. Like what was going on, it was just out of nowhere. I'm like, man, the Chiefs just cannot ever catch an off-season break, can they? They just can't do it.
Bryce too much.
But Hollywood Brown headed back there. I don't think it's a bad signing. I thought he was pretty productive when he finally came back and was healthy. So, you got him sitting on your dynasty roster. He's obviously an older guy, so you're just kind of sitting on him, and hopefully you're a contender with him. I don't think he's worth much there, but I think he could be worth some to your roster, especially, a flex spot. He can make the big plays, and he made some things happen there. So I like that him just going back to the Chiefs.
12 or Hollywood Brown?
Hollywood Brown.
There you go. Late second. That's all you'd have to pay if you want a piece of the action. Remember, Rice, he's still coming off of injury. He's still probably going to have some restrictions on him when he returns. And Xavier Worthy, I will say, wow. Last year at the end of the season, did he tear it up or what?
I like Xavier Worthy, especially coming into his second year, where we usually see these wide receivers take a big step. He was the only light on during the Super Bowl. He was the only light that we really saw come out of that. I mean, it was a lot of hopeful balls of just chucking it down the field and him coming down with it, but he looked good while doing it. So I really like him heading into it.
There was one more wide receiver that I really liked from Kansas City, and his name was Justin Watson, and he now has signed with the Texans. And the Texans have also traded for Christian Kirk from the Jaguars for only a 26 7th-round pick. The Texans are doing it right. They're getting guys, and both Christian Kirk and Justin Watson can play the same role.
I like Christian Kirk. What a heck of a deal for the Texans. I mean, he is a very good, reliable wide receiver. I mean, he is one of those guys that he runs very good routes, and he will be in the right place at the right time. he's going to be perfect for CJ Stroud to gain his confidence back in year 3. We saw CJ Stroud have that slump. We saw his wide receivers up and down with injuries and everything. And so I think Christian Kirk coming in here is really going to help CJ Stroud get back in the groove. I think it's going to be great for Christian Kirk. I like it getting him out of Jacksonville. I mean, I don't think he was going to operate as well having, I can't think of his name right now. BTJ, thank you. Having BTJ there, I don't think he was going to operate well. So getting him there with Nico Collins, I think is a much better match because they play very different roles. Christian Kirk will kind of be the slot guy that goes and gets, multiple targets and is in the right place at the right time, that safety valve, where Nico Collins is the big catch, big yak guy. So I think they are going to complement each other really well. And I really like it for Christian Kirk. I mean, and you can get him cheap right now. I mean, there might be some people that are excited about his Texans signing, but at the same time, no one was big on him when he was the one. So in Jacksonville, they're not going to be as excited with Nico Collins, and a lot of people are perceiving Tank Dell as a threat and everything, but he won't be playing next year either, and we kind of saw his decline this year. So I'm big on Kirk.
For early third, I bet you can get him for 301, 302, maybe 303 if somebody's really excited about somebody on the clock.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, if you really want to go after him and pay that 212 or 211, I think you're overpaying a little bit, but I think an early third would get it done for Christian Kirk.
Yeah, and he's someone you can easily toss in your flex, and especially in full PPR leagues, I think he gets it done for you. He's definitely a floor play. He's more of like a safety. Hey, I just need to make sure this guy gets me 10, 12 points. That's exactly what I was going to say. This guy's going to get me double digit 10, 12 points. He's not going to go off for 30 and be the hero of my team. If you're the underdog, don't be going for Christian Kirk and playing him. But if you are facing someone that's, a little bit worse team than yours and you just need that consistent, you can put him in and he's going to get it.
Yep. So the Jags cleaned house, and then they decided to bring in Dyami Brown on a 1-year, $10 million contract that could go up to $12 million with incentives. I think we can continue to move on from this one. Josh Palmer signs a 3-year deal with Buffalo for $36 million. I think we can move on from this as well. I don't know. Do you want to talk about either one of these two?
The Josh Palmer one is definitely more interesting because Josh Palmer he's a good wide receiver. He's never going to be the alpha, but he has a role on a team. We saw him have a role on the Chargers. We saw him have that role, for a couple of years, and in this last year didn't really do much, but I think it's more interesting. We saw Mac Hollins be productive on this Bills team. So Josh Allen likes to move the ball around. And so if Josh Palmer can play the role of, hey, you might be my reliable guy in the midfield, which is where Josh Palmer kind of is good at. I mean, we could see a couple of weeks here and there. It might be difficult to kind of say, hey, I'm confident in playing Josh Palmer this week. But like a best ball league, I wouldn't mind stashing him on my roster. I mean, you might be able to get him off of the waivers, honestly, or toss a fourth at somebody. Because he might have some weeks that, he catches a touchdown or two that could easily get you some points.
All right. Well, you heard it here first. Josh Palmer is taking over the Keon Coleman role with the Buffalo Bills. Let's go towards the quarterbacks now. And Geno Smith has been traded to the Raiders for a 2025 third, and he reunites with Pete Carroll.
I don't know about this. This one was probably the most surprising to me.
No, not surprising at all. They kept saying they wanted to get a vet quarterback in, and they were planning to draft a quarterback at some point in this draft, which I project to be Will Howard, former quarterback for Chip Kelly, the new offensive coordinator for the Raiders. And they can get him in the 4th round.
If they could, they can get him in the 4th round. They can have him.
It's coming. It's coming. You heard it here, folks. Will Howard will be a Raider.
I mean, that's fine and dandy for them. It definitely brings more interest to me for Brock Bowers wise, because we've seen can be a good quarterback. He's good enough. He gets the job done. So Brock Bowers owners, gosh, you got to be so happy. my goodness, this is like a way big upgrade from what he had last year. And I could see Brock Bowers just being an absolute monster this upcoming year because as of right now, I mean, that's still all they got. So him, Jacoby Myers, you could probably get a little bit more excited about once again. We saw him decline last year, but I think that was more due to the quarterback play because Jacoby Myers is a good wide receiver. So it gets me excited for them. Geno Smith, he is who he is. I think he'll end up, a back end quarterback too. Not ridiculously excited about him. In a super flex, sure, it's nice to have. I think he'll be just a consistent quarterback that kind of gets you through weeks, a nice little floor play. I don't think he'll ever be a big disappointment, but I don't think he's going to be a blow up kind of guy that'll win you the week. But if you need a nice floor play, Geno won't be a bad option. But yay, Jacoby and Brock.
So after Geno Smith was traded to the Raiders and the Seahawks they end up getting Sam Darnold on a 3-year, $110 million contract. Geno Smith said, I ain't going to be a backup to the gingerbread man.
He's not. He said, I'm out.
Out. But Sam Darnold, he gets paid. And we were projecting it, darn near as much as Kirk Cousins. And why that, and we're going to get to it here in just a second, why Daniel Jones didn't sign with the Vikings for a 1-year, $10 million contract, because he saw that Sam Darnold went from dead to now the starting quarterback in the league again for $110 million. Did anyone see that coming before last year?
No. And I can tell you why Daniel Jones did not. Are we going to Daniel Jones here, or are we going to stick with Sam?
You have anything more to say about Sam Darnold before we get into Danny Dimes?
Sam, I don't really have much to say, except for, it's going to be an interesting beginning of the year. Is Sam Darnold actually good, or was it Kevin O'Connell? That's going to be the big thing. So it makes me a little bit nervous as a JSN owner. I think JSN should be fine because he operates in that short to midfield anyways, and Sam Darnold's capable of getting it there. We're seeing them hit a complete reset though on that team, so it'll be kind of interesting how that shakes up and everything. And the new offensive coordinator did come in and says, "Hey, I want to get the running game going," so maybe a little more interested for old Ken Walker there, but it'll be definitely interesting to see. Believe what happens in weeks 1 through 4 is what I'm gonna kind of leave it at. Sam Darnold comes out looking like a turd weeks 1 through 4. Believe it, he's a turd. That's pretty much how I'm leaving it.
Righty. Daniel Jones ends up signing with the Colts. He is now Indiana Jones.
I believe as soon as I saw the signing, I sent you a friendly worded text message. To keep this PG, I cannot repeat the message. And the reasoning is because the Colts organization and Daniel Jones and his agent all know exactly why Daniel Jones went to the Colts. And that is because he looked at the situation in Minnesota and he looked at the situation in Indianapolis. And the situation is, I have no idea if JJ McCarthy is good. I have no idea. This kid, he doesn't know because we haven't seen him in the NFL. You can shake your head all day if you want to, but we haven't seen him.
Don't get me started on a tangent again.
We don't know if he is good or not. And the Vikings invested a draft pick just last year, the 10th overall pick in JJ McCarthy. So at some point, he's getting a shot.
And a third.
Okay. And a third. Anthony Richardson's draft pick was 3 years ago now. And we've seen him be bad now for 2 years.
Well, he was good for the first 2 games when he was a rookie, and then he got hurt.
And now he has not come back, and he's been terrible and can't complete over 50% of his passes. So Daniel Jones is looking at this situation going, I can beat him out. I can beat out Anthony Richardson. He has looked terrible. I mean, I can walk into that situation. If Anthony Richardson is bad even for 1 second, the Colts are giving him pretty much zero slack. If you don't come out and perform, he's going to be done, and that's what's going to happen. So Daniel Jones is looking at this situation of, hey, I know for a fact this guy is not performing. I can go in there and be a starter, and hopefully, he could sign a deal with the Colts if he plays well enough, or go and revitalize his career. Whereas in Minnesota, I know you like to say J.J. McCarthy is not good, but Daniel Jones doesn't. He's taking a higher risk, I would say, at the fact that the Vikings are like, yeah, we're going to stick with J.J. McCarthy, and now he's a backup. Whereas he goes to Indianapolis, and he's like, man, this guy sucks. I can easily take this job. So I think that's why Daniel Jones is going to Indianapolis on such a cheap deal, is because he has the better chance to start.
Well, they've already been coming out with AR they're trying to move him, and a lot of it had to do with not even so much how his playing was, but he took himself out of a game to take a breather, and he completely lost the locker room not once but twice in just last year. And so they're just showing he doesn't have the leadership skills. He's really young. He doesn't remember he was a guy that didn't have all that much experience coming out of college. And now what's the NFL doing? They're getting guys that have had a lot of experience in college, like a Bo Nix, and they saw the success rate increase. What do you think is going to happen in this coming draft? You're getting some quarterbacks that have more experience. What about next year? You're getting quarterbacks with more experience. We're not going to, the days of Trey Lance and the days of Richardson getting drafted in the top 5 picks in the NFL draft are long gone.
Yeah, we're gonna start to see these quarterbacks that have, and we're gonna start seeing quarterbacks that stay in college more because of NIL. With the NIL money, they're gonna start staying longer because they're not gonna take, they're not getting not paid at all in order to stay there. So it's gonna see these quarterbacks elongate their college careers, get more experience, be better. And that was the biggest knock on Anthony Richardson. He had started 17 games since high school to when he came into the NFL. And so that was like one of the big things is like, what is this guy even? And I think Daniel Jones just knows that he can beat him out. And the fact that they're already talking, hey, is anyone interested? And I'm assuming there's going to be a whole lot of teams saying, no. you can keep them, and we'll take them when you cut them in next year. We'll let them just sit on your roster and continue to develop there. And then once you cut them, we'll just take them then. And maybe turn him into a really good tight end.
I'm going to breeze through some of these next signings. Jimmy G remains with the Rams. We've got Nick Mullins to the Jaguars to back up Trevor Lawrence because Mac Jones had signed with the 49ers on a 2-year deal. And Kenny Pickett, here's one. Kenny Pickett traded to the Browns for DTR and a 5th-round pick. I think that wasn't a bad move by the Browns to get a quarterback that's going to be cheap. They're in the sense that they have a quarterback that has played with NFL experience. It's on a cheap deal. They're not going to have to pay him anything because they still have such a bloated contract with Deshaun Watson. And not that Kenny Pickett's good. Don't get my words twisted. He's not. But at number 2 overall in the NFL draft, they have the ability to take the best player on the board or trade back and pick up some assets because they have a lot of work to do with the Browns.
Are you talking about Super Bowl winning quarterback Kenny Pickett?
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was able to hold on to the trophy, though, with those tiny hands.
I think that's how they got Myles Garrett to stay. They're like, hey, we're going to bring in a Super Bowl winning quarterback.
Yes, Myles Garrett signs a massive contract.
And then
$40 million a year, $123.5 million guaranteed. That was what it was. That was what it was. They promised him a Super Bowl winning quarterback in his contract, and by golly, they did it.
Golly, they got him. They got that Super Bowl winning quarterback.
Well done, Colton. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, Kenny Pickett is just, he's Mason Rudolph. They're basically one and the same guys. I mean, sure, they can do a job. Not the best, not great, not pretty, but they can do a job. I mean, and once again, I'm I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't. You would
I
think
thought
that,
you were gonna get a cheap quarterback, and
well,
that's what they're doing.
you would think that Kenny Pickett would just win a Super Bowl with Philadelphia. He's like, I'll just stay here and maybe try to go this thing back to back. But
Said that he's a starting quarterback in the NFL. He views himself as a starting quarterback.
that's what he says. And I hate to tell him, but his test scores must be low because he is wrong. He is wrong.
We will see him starting with the Browns to start off the 2025 season. And you know who we'll also see starting at quarterback? Josh Allen. He also signed a huge contract, 6 years, $330 million, $250 million guaranteed. Pay the man.
My good. But how much money was it?
$330 million,
I thought it was,
$250 million guaranteed, 6
thought it-
years.
I thought it was more than that. My goodness, that's still a big bag. For some reason, I thought I had read somewhere that it was more than that. But
There
my
may have been.
goodness,
There could have been incentives or something, but that's what I had saw when the news broke.
I mean, absolutely, that's what you have to do after. The Bills are doing it right. I mean, that is an absolute. I think the most genius thing they could have done is extend them that far out and say, "This is our quarterback. This is our guy." Because then you get into the situation that the Bengals are in. Well, now Myles Garrett has reset the market for non-quarterback pay. So now Jamar Chase is going to go, I want more than him, when they could have just signed Jamar Chase prior to that for the $40 million a year he wanted. Well, now he's going to say, I want more than that. They keep just pushing this down the road rather than doing what the Bills do and say, hey, we'll take that price for this year. So when it comes to 4 years down the road where the quarterbacks are making more than Josh Allen and he's still playing like a superstar, they're not having to pay him then. They're paying him off of what they did 4 years ago. So absolute genius move, and good for Josh Allen too. He's got a wedding to pay for.
I mean, they gotta pay him before Kenny Pickett gets paid. other, I can't say it serious. But let's get into some running backs here, and then that's pretty much all I have here. There are still a couple quarterbacks that are still out there on the market. Aaron Rodgers, and we also have Winston that's available as far as free agents go. And then there's still definitely quarterback needy teams that are out there. Where do you feel that Winston and Aaron Rodgers should end up? And don't say the Vikings. Although the Vikings do need a quarterback. Because we have JJ McCarthy, who hasn't played in a regular season game, and we've got Brett Rippon, who shouldn't even be in the NFL right now, as our two quarterbacks on our roster.
Brett ripping farts, man. Ripping some farts on that field. It's wasn't expecting that. I thought you actually did that for a second. I was like, mute your mic, man. My goodness. There's a mute button for a reason.
Man.
It is rumored as of right now that Aaron Rodgers it's between three teams, and that's the Steelers. They have reached out with an offer. The New York Giants have reached out, and also the Vikings have reached out and are debating on whether they want to offer something to Aaron Rodgers. And I think it's all dependent on kind of Rodgers and what he wants to do at this point. I think any team that takes Rodgers in is an absolute moron. And I was texting you this earlier. I think it was either today or yesterday, saying, "Hey, since Daniel Jones signed to the Colts, I'm going to need a ticket for the Vikings bus because I'm hopping on it." And then I saw the Aaron Rodgers news, and I said, "Never mind, I'm okay. I'm okay where I'm at."
Well, and then I said that if we end up trading for Anthony Richardson, then you'll have best of both worlds.
Just get it all. I'll love every minute.
There was a quarterback we forgot. Justin Fields was signed with the Jets.
Oh, we did forget about
that. $40 million. So he's the new starting quarterback for the New York Jets.
Yeah, I think that's actually fantastic news for, Justin Fields owners that have held on to him through the rough year last year. You got him. I think you have a low-end quarterback one for that, just because the fact that he rushes. He's going to run the heck out of the ball. I don't think it's the worst news for Garrett Wilson. We saw Justin Fields make DJ Moore relevant. And so I think there's an absolute path to relevancy for he likes to focus in on his one guy. And I think Garrett Wilson is going to obviously be that go-to guy. So I think it's okay for Garrett Wilson. It doesn't scare me off as a Garrett Wilson owner. Hopefully he just does like what he did for DJ Moore and just hones in on him and absolutely peppers him. So
Never saw DJ Moore just walk off the field when Fields was throwing him the ball.
That's true. Exactly.
Caleb Williams.
Right.
So
Aaron Rodgers belongs in the retirement home. Jameis Winston, I want him to retire and become an announcer, man. I love him. When he was doing the stuff for the Pro Bowl, I love him as a person, as a player. I would love to see him be a team, but only as a starter, man. I want him to start, and if he doesn't start, just go and be an announcer and entertain me, man. Entertain me on Sundays. I just want him entertaining me somehow, some way.
You know a guy that likes to entertain? Saquon Barkley likes to entertain, and he likes to entertain so much that he gets a 2-year extension. The Eagles awarded him with a 2-year, $41.2 million contract extension that makes him the highest paid running back in NFL history. The deal makes Barkley NFL's first $20 million plus per year running back, and Barkley has the ability to earn an additional $15 million in incentives. The deal includes a $36 million fully guaranteed at signing.
Pay that man.
Wow. Good for him. Good for him.
Good for him. Good for the Eagles. They absolutely rewarded the guy for doing what he did for their team. I mean, he came in and absolutely leveled that team up. That offense, they had to take an account for him on every single down, which just opened up their passing game even more. He deserves every penny. And from that, I think you get 2 more great years out of Saquon Barkley. So if you are a Saquon Barkley owner, you've got to be ecstatic. And he becomes one of those guys that unless you are desperate and completely out of contention, like he's the only thing you got on your roster, I mean, you got to be super stoked to hang on to him and just let that puppy ride out until he is gone. Because that's just awesome. And I think he's going to just absolutely be another league winner for the next 2 years.
I'm sad I've never had him in fantasy. Redraft.
Unfortunately.
I had an opportunity last year, and because I chose Cooper Kupp over Saquon Barkley at the end of the second round, that was the difference.
Man, you hate to see it, but yeah, absolute league winner. And I've also never had Saquon. Makes me sad.
Aaron Jones re-signed with the Vikings, $20 million contract for 2 years. Aaron Jones, I think it's fine. It's fine. It's a fine signing, but the Vikings still need to pick up 2 more running backs. We need 2 more running backs. We need a quarterback. We need some defensive players. Like, we only got 4 picks.
So yeah, my dad and I were talking about this one. As if the audience doesn't know, my dad's a huge Vikings fan, along with Dustin there, and I'm
Good
like
man.
I'm in that side bandwagon. I love the Vikings because my dad does. So we were talking about it, and we were like, yeah, what do they do? Do they just let Jones walk and go and get a running back and everything? And no sooner than when I hung up that phone, like 10 minutes later, I sent him the screenshot. Aaron Jones re-signs for 2 years, and he's like, "You've got to be kidding me!" And I was like, "I think they still need a running back of consequence on that team."
Need 2 more. 2 more.
I mean, sure, 2 more, but at least one that's going to be a different role player. I mean, they could go in, and I know we haven't had a chance to talk about the rookie running backs yet, but they could go in and grab one of these rookie running backs that's going to be more of like the every down back, the grinder that can be a 3-down back that can take some heat off Jones, because we saw him get worn down at the end of the year. He was awesome, electric at the beginning of the year. And he just got so worn down because he's older. He's an older back. I mean, he can't keep up. And at the end of the year, we just saw it go downhill. And that's when their teams were like, all right, we don't have to account for Jones, so we can try to take out this passing game. We saw the decline of Jefferson and Sam Darnold because of that. I mean, they need someone that's going to be able to continue from week in and week out and take some heat off Jones so he can be that electric back he needs to be. And I think they would have been just fine if they had that, but they were able to key in that Jones was kind of worn down. So they're still going to have to reach into the draft pocket to get another back, and there is plenty of them in there for them to get. So that's good news. But yeah, I'm agreeing with you. It's a fine signing. And I think
Fine.
if you're an Aaron Jones holder, I think this is honestly the best situation that you probably could have asked for.
I think we need to pivot. We could pivot back to another former running back with the Minnesota Vikings. Alexander Madison has signed with the Dolphins, and he is now the current meat shield for the Dolphins backfield. So no worries for Achane and Jalen Wright.
Yeah, the third guy. I mean, I don't
he's
know.
just a guy.
It's two guys and Achane. A guy that can't see, a guy that can't run, and then Achane. So it's just two guys that can grab the ball and act like they're running backs, and then Achane can just be the true back for them and get a break every now and then. That's really what it is. Unless Jalen Wright can finally see. Maybe he needs that surgery that Jameis Winston had, the LASIK or cataracts, whatever surgery he had. Open up his eyes a little bit.
It was his LASIK, I think.
LASIK, yeah. Get that LASIK surgery, Jalen Wright, and so maybe you can run.
So I've got just 4 other signings, and I'm just going to throw them out there, and then we can just see what kind of sticks to the wall. Javonte Williams signed a 3-year deal with Dallas. Najee Harris signing with the Chargers. Rico Dowdle signs with the Panthers. And the Eagles sign A.J. Dillon. Any of those sound interesting to you?
Not A.J. Dillon.
Not at all. But remember, there used to be a comparison between Saquon and A.J. Dillon's thighs when he came out as a rookie. The say quads, and A.J. Dillon's quads. There was a comparison to say who had the biggest quads. Do you not remember this?
No.
Yes, it happened.
I don't know why.
He had huge quads. Saquon had huge quads.
Quadzilla?
Quads. This is when Quadzilla came out.
Oh man, I did not know that. I had no idea.
And now they have a lot of quads, and they have probably the heaviest squatting running backs in the league.
It's the quad squad because there's 4 quads.
Well, and don't forget, Hurts can squat a lot too. So you've got a lot of quads.
Squared, quads cubed.
This just in, Philadelphia quads.
The Philadelphia.
And their stadium could be called the Quad.
Yeah, out on the quad with the quads.
We're going to go to the Quad. We're going to watch the quads. There's a lot of quads running.
There's plenty of quads. Big quads. Little quads. But mainly big.
Okay. Well, I think we need to shake a leg and probably go on with the other signings with Harris to the Chargers, Williams to Dallas.
Najee Harris to the Chargers is absolutely interesting to me. He is a guy that his best ability is his availability. He has not missed a game in the 3-4 years now that he's been there in Pittsburgh. 4 years, I think it was his 4th. But he has not missed a single game for them, and I think that's what the Chargers are truly looking for. He's a guy that has durability. He can get the job done. He's fine. He's not like the superstar that everyone thought he was going to be in Pittsburgh. I mean, he is a guy that can handle a huge workload for them and be a grinder, and that's what they're looking for. I still think they're going to go and look for more of an explosive back. I would love to see J.K. Dobbins to come back to that squad and kind of be their shake-up back and be the more explosive pass catcher and let Najee do that grinding work that he can do. I mean, he can handle the workload. So it definitely brings some interest. He's always been a high touch guy. That's what's brought Najee his fantasy relevance, is the fact that he touches the ball 1 billion times a year. And this is a team that wants to run the ball, so I could see him having a solid role. You're looking at him probably being a mid to back end running back too, but that still is awesome to have on your fantasy team. That is someone, I think he's going to be another floor play. because I don't think he's going to let you down. But that's what you need sometimes. Sometimes you just need that guy that's like, hey, this is a reliable back that I know is going to be available because he has been. You can just put him in there. You can trust the fact that he's going to be there. And on a team that likes to run the ball, I like it, honestly.
Okay, you're not worried about Kamani Vidal taking the ball away from Najee?
I wasn't worried about him last year. I ain't worried about him this year. Not at all.
I will say you got to give yourself a pat on the back. No Kamani Vidal for Colten. He said it from the start. You don't want him. You don't
No.
want him.
Mm-mm.
I got him in one league.
Yeah, I mean, he was just that guy that was, if you had a max size hole, he could do something with it. But then again, so could Dustin and I. So I mean, that was just one thing. But I think the Chargers are still going to bring someone in. They want to run the ball. They want to be able to do that. And whether it's J.K. Dobbins or they go and look somewhere else for their explosive back, I think there's going to be someone that's going to be come in and complement Najee. But I think Najee is going to be the goal line back as well with how big he is. So he'll be getting touchdowns, and it's a good offense that'll score touchdowns. So that's just a piece you want.
I know exactly who they're going to bring in. They already brought in Mike Williams back. Why not?
Austin.
Melvin Gordon's a free agent still.
Oh gosh, I thought you were going to say Eckler. I was like, what?
Maybe Eckler's available.
Melvin Gordon's.
Keenan Allen's available. You can bring them all back.
Bring them all back.
Bring them all back. But with that, Colten, I think that's pretty much wraps up the free agency frenzy. Unless you have,
you want to talk
you
about
have another one?
You're not excited about Javonte going to the
I
Cowboys?
was never excited about Javonte.
You're not so excited for them to bring him in on his $3 million deal for a rookie just to take his job?
Oh, because the Cowboys, they need a running back.
Well, yeah, I know. That's why I said the rookie's going to just take his job. He's going to have a nice backup role.
Last I checked, Javonte Williams wasn't a running back in the NFL.
He's not? What does he do?
I haven't seen him play very many games.
I mean, he was there.
I don't think he's very good. I don't think he's very good, Colten.
He was there. He just wasn't doing much. So I mean,
getting outperformed by undrafted free agents.
The unfortunate part is he made $3 million.
He might just be a camp body, or they don't have anyone else. It's just him and Deuce Vaughn, I think, right now.
Yeah, Rico Dowdle. We didn't talk about that one real fast. Going to the Panthers to beat Chuba. Chuba's back up. If you do have Chuba, you could probably toss like a fourth at somebody for an insurance if you really want it. But if you're into having your insurance back, Rico Dowdle is going to be fine if Chuba goes down. But other than that, that's really not exciting.
Not with this rookie class. No way. I would not pay even a fourth for Rico Dowdle.
If you're into that kind of stuff.
By the way, and he's with the Panthers on top of it. No.
Hey, Chuba looked good.
Chuba looks good because he is good.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if Rico Dowdle is, Rico Dowdle. I don't think he's. I mean, he was a 1,000-yard running back just last year. Don't get me wrong, but he's not the type of investment that I'm looking for my fantasy football leagues.
No, I said if you're into that, I said if you're into the insurance, you do it for like a fourth because that's all you got to do. But if you're into it,
no, he just signed with the Panthers. I mean, he's got to be worth more than a fourth now, right?
No, nobody's excited to have Rico Dowdle on their roster. I mean, you could honestly maybe get him off the waivers once season rolls around. After all this drop for those rookies.
Better buy him before the news breaks that Jonathan Brooks isn't going to play a snap this season. Then Rico Dowdle.
Oh, yeah.
Late third.
It's like Illinois
312.
Just flat, maybe a little bumpy because of the potholes. It's like that's about it.
Well, with that, Colten, I think that's the fantasy free agency frenzy that we were all waiting for. Thanks for coming together. Thanks for listening to us. Remember, you can listen to us on just about any podcast platform that's out there. Find us at FF Healers and at FF Captain 22 on Twitter X. And don't forget to look us up on YouTube to watch these videos. Thank you all for listening. And we look forward to talking to some rookie talk next week.
Let's go, rookies! Yeah, I'm super pumped.
All right. With that, the Fantasy Football Healers are out.
Salud.